Tibet rises above the world, a land of mountains and windswept plains. For centuries it has been a center of deep spirituality. Monasteries perched on cliffs, prayer flags fluttering in the cold air. Tibetan Buddhism shapes the identity of its people, and the landscape itself feels sacred. Yet Tibet's isolation has always been precarious, wedged between India and China. Whoever controls Tibet commands Asia's great rivers and the Himalayan frontier. This strategic reality has often pulled Tibet's peaceful society into the harsh world of geopolitics. Today, as the Dalai Lama ages in exile, urgent questions loom. Who will guide Tibet's future? China has its own plans, and India watches with concern. The succession of the Dalai Lama is not just a religious matter, it's a geopolitical event with profound implications for Asia's stability. The quiet mountains of Tibet are set to become the stage for a struggle that will test the limits of faith, power, and sovereignty. For centuries, the Dalai Lama was both spiritual and political leader of Tibet, embodying its unique Buddhist state. This way of life ended in 1950, when Mao's China invaded, claiming to liberate Tibet. The Tibetan army was quickly overwhelmed, and the 17-point agreement forced Tibet under Chinese control. Promises to protect Tibetan autonomy were soon broken as Beijing tightened its grip and eroded Tibetan culture. Resistance grew, culminating in the 1959 Lhasa uprising. Fearing for his life, the young Dalai Lama fled Tibet, disguised as a soldier, crossing the Himalayas into India. His escape marked the end of Tibetan independence and the start of a long exile. The Dalai Lama's arrival in India transformed Tibet's plight into an international cause. He became the voice of his people, a symbol China could not silence. The world now watched as Tibet's soul fought to survive beyond its borders. In 1959, India welcomed the Dalai Lama and thousands of Tibetan refugees, despite the risk of angering China. Dharamshala became the heart of the Tibetan diaspora, where the Dalai Lama established the Central Tibetan Administration, a government in exile with a democratic framework. India's support went beyond asylum. It helped create schools and settlements, preserving Tibetan language, culture, and religion. Monasteries, nunneries, and cultural institutes flourished, keeping Tibetan traditions alive. The Tibetan community thrived, contributing to Indian society while maintaining their unique heritage. India became a quiet guardian, nurturing the spirit of Tibet in exile. The monasteries re-established in India became global centers of Buddhist learning. Tibetan arts, crafts, and medicine found new life. India's steadfast support ensured that the flame of Tibet would not be extinguished. After the Dalai Lama's escape and India's defeat in the 1962 war with China, a secret force was born, the Special Frontier Force, or SFF. Composed mainly of Tibetan refugees, the SFF was trained for guerrilla warfare and high-altitude combat, ready to defend India and one day reclaim Tibet. Supported by Indian intelligence and the CIA, the SFF operated in the shadows for decades. Its soldiers, known as Vikasis, fought in key conflicts, from the 1971 Bangladesh War to the 1999 Kargil War. Their bravery remained largely unrecognized, until 2020, when an SFF officer's public funeral brought their sacrifice into the spotlight. For 60 years, Tibetans have served on India's front lines, fighting for their adopted home and dreaming of their own. The SFF is a living symbol of the bond between India and Tibet. Their story is one of loyalty, courage, and hope for a free Tibet. The question of the next Dalai Lama is now the heart of Tibet's struggle. Traditionally, senior lamas search for the Dalai Lama's reincarnation through sacred rituals and signs. China, however, insists it will control this process, planning to install its own Dalai Lama loyal to Beijing. This would create two rival Dalai Lamas, one chosen by Tibetans in exile, likely in India, and one imposed by China. The current Dalai Lama has rejected China's authority, suggesting he may be reborn in a free country or even end the institution. The precedent is clear. China abducted the Panchen Lama, chosen by the Dalai Lama, and installed its own, rejected by most Tibetans. The coming succession could split Tibetan Buddhism, creating a spiritual crisis and a new front in the struggle for Tibet's soul. The world will face a choice, which Dalai Lama to recognize. For Tibetans, only a leader chosen by tradition holds true legitimacy. The battle for the Dalai Lama is a battle for the future of Tibetan identity. India's policy on Tibet is a careful balancing act. Officially, India recognizes Tibet as part of China, avoiding statements that could provoke Beijing. Yet, India's actions tell another story. It shelters the Dalai Lama, supports the Tibetan government in exile, and preserves Tibetan culture. This quiet support is more powerful than any public declaration. If the next Dalai Lama is found in India, especially in Tawang, a region China claims, it could trigger a major crisis. India's strategy is one of strategic ambiguity, nurturing Tibetan identity while avoiding open confrontation. By doing so, India keeps the choice of Tibet's spiritual future alive. It is a subtle but powerful stance, positioning India as a guardian of Tibetan spirituality. The future of Tibet hangs in the balance. For China, controlling the Dalai Lama's succession is the final step in absorbing Tibet and securing its Himalayan frontier. For India, a Chinese-appointed Dalai Lama would threaten its influence in the Buddhist Himalayan belt. The Tibetan people are caught in the middle, fighting for the survival of their civilization and faith. The legitimacy of the next Dalai Lama is a matter of spiritual life or death for Tibetans. The world must ask who should decide Tibet's fate, a foreign power or the Tibetan people themselves? The answer will shape Asia's future, and the world watches to see if the spirit of Tibet will be reborn.